Yeah.
Obviously, we've never done something like this, just me and you sitting down, but I'm super excited to give this a shot.
Yeah, me too.
Spend 5 minutes scrolling your phone and you'll see it. The start bench cut graphics, the 1-minute videos discrediting the legacies of all-time greats, maybe even a redraft of a class that has yet to play a single game. We'll be honest, the sports social media world is at a low point. A bunch of well-funded corporations competing for engagement like starved piranhas. It's a race for algorithmic superiority, a blind allegiance to a set of invisible equations regardless of what those shifting guidelines demand. And worst of all, tomorrow morning, there'll be another batch of derivative hot takes ready to flood the timeline. Troves of fans will fight like mortal enemies in comment sections, hurling personal insults at each other under the guise of debates. We see it every day, not through the lens of a fan, but as creators. Luckily, what we've been able to build has stayed far away from this cycle of social hot takes for the sake of attention. That's why we wanted to take a step back, not to complain, but to break down where all this noise is coming from and what it's doing to the game we love. Because it's time someone said something, put together all of the pieces into one video, sat down and had that conversation. And maybe, just maybe, if there's still a way to keep this discourse from devouring everything, you'll find it in this video. But yeah, I think it's kind of indicative of like a bigger question on our culture where it's just like, we want to see what's going on and what's being talked about so we can be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's the sensationalization that we're dealing with where something is either the biggest deal in the world or it doesn't matter at all.
There's a mandate facing every creator or conglomerate hoping to make an impact on the sports media scene, post or die. Any prolonged stint without a contribution to the timeline can result in a slide in relevance, severe enough to leave entire teams demoralized. Of course, there aren't breaking stories or must-see plays popping up every day. Sometimes the right string of games will lead to endless highlights for the ever-increasing pool of accounts to aggregate, but that's the exception, not the rule. Most of the time, nights proceed quietly with a couple of wow moments buried in some inconsequential regular season matchups, and those just don't get people going in the same way. Unfortunately, the algorithm makes no exceptions for slow news days. Without a Luka-sized trade to build hosts around, or a Steph Curry buzzer beater with 6 different angles, accounts are forced to find new ways to stay visible. For us, that usually means searching the halls of NBA history for an under-discussed player or overlooked story. Sometimes that works. Trust us though, sometimes it just doesn't. The variance there is something we're willing to live with. But many other platforms can't accept that risk. Posts like that take time. Researching, writing, designing, and editing are all individual processes, taxing steps that can't be rushed and aren't necessarily rewarded. It's a financial and monetary investment without any guarantees, and that's not the way the guys at the top operate. They need certainty, a way to assure the higher-ups that they're hitting their KPIs, expanding the brand, and staying attractive to advertisers. Growth is the only acceptable state when there are investors waiting on returns, even if that growth comes at the cost of the brand's ethos. So instead of crafting an obscure piece of content to fill the lull, they reach back into their bag of successful, recycled highlights and hot takes. People are scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, and it's like, how often are you thinking at the end of the day about a post you saw? And you really aren't. In-game moments everyone's seen 1,000 times. Debates that have been argued from every angle possible. It doesn't matter that it's regurgitated. It's proven success. There aren't certain buttons you could count on as a creator. A post about the GOAT conversation will result in droves of people going to war in the comments. A compilation of John Morant and Anthony Edwards assaulting the rim will get reactions. For a lot of us who have seen those dunks over and over and heard those arguments ad nauseum, our eyes glaze over. Die-hard fans watch games for reasons more complex than all-time standings or moments of athletic brilliance. But when compared to the massive amount of social media users, fans like that are the minority, using their feeds as constantly updating snapshots of the league today, form their opinions around the consensus of comment sections. And eventually, after enough bursts of dopamine and cortisol, their appetite as sports fans evolve. Full-length games become boring and nuanced conversations grow dull. Eat enough fast food and full-course meals start to feel unnecessary. Unfortunately, nutrients still matter. Over time, that diet of instant excitement and sudden anger erodes attention spans and distorts reality.
I think you and I can attest to what seems to be the most valuable metrics on Instagram right now are comments and shares. Even if you don't like a post, especially if the post makes you really, really angry, you're more likely to leave a comment. You're more likely to send it to a friend so that they can leave a comment. And counterintuitively, the post grows because of that.
Greatness is tied to relevance, and without new information to deconstruct that false equivalence, its logic sticks. Narratives like LeBron isn't clutch gain permanent traction based on a 30-second cut-up of missed game winners. The idea that Jokic is a catastrophic defender becomes law because one account made a funny tweet during a bad game. Meanwhile, LeBron averages 33, 7, and 5 in elimination games, while Jokic's quick hands and reliable rebounding make him a prototypical possession ender. But that's not bold enough to leave an impact. How much of the player's identity is being shaped by themselves, and how much is it being shaped by like actual online discourse, where you're hearing more about players on Instagram than people are actually watching the games? Obviously, we had the famous quote from Jalen Williams this year saying, "Watch the games." And it seems like the majority of basketball fans don't watch the games. In an echo chamber of increasingly audacious statements, rational counterpoints go unheard. Without those sensible rebuttals, those talking points vastly overstay their welcome. The good news is there are countless accounts out there fighting the good fight. Underappreciated creators breaking down defensive rotations, uplifting role players, and adding context to outcomes.
You see a lot of creators out there that are making great things that are either unbelievably articulate in the way that they analyze things, or things that are really funny without trying to drag somebody down, coming at it from a new angle. And you see the ways that those are organically growing.
A global network of meme pages, commentators, and analytic guides doing their best to offer a light in this confusing tunnel of overlapping opinions and familiar highlights. That's a level of coverage we've never had before. No one would be fawning over Toumani Kamara's perimeter defense or Steven Adams' offensive rebounding 10 years ago. Now those quiet contributors get the love and attention their play warrants. Nevertheless, those are niche circles, not mainstream communities. They're dedicated to the basketball sickos who love nothing more than flipping through League Pass on a Tuesday. The less dedicated NBA fans rely on media giants to keep them up to date and informed. That was one thing when ratings and sentiment drove the value of a brand, but now it's widespread engagement, and that's a different animal. Appealing to a massive audience while still being expected to grow that said audience leaves no room for assumptions. They can't show respect to their followers and build off of an expected level of basketball knowledge. The pool they're drawing from is too big for that, so they go back to the wells that never seem to run dry, and as they do, that divide grows. A chasm between the research tube heads constantly searching for new angles and a passing observer who wants to engage with the world of basketball in a casual way. That means one side is routinely being fed reductive narratives meant to stir the pot, while the other is comparing the box plus minuses and on-off ratings of rotation players. Two opposing sides of fandom basing their actions off of wildly different understandings of the league. That kind of division never ends well. It reinforces a mutual disdain that makes conversations almost impossible. You see it in the comment sections of those oversized accounts. Internet battles that grow closer and closer to ugly personal arguments with each reply. What used to be a binding mutual agreement becomes a battleground of ball knowledge and trolling.
The immediate reaction for most people is so defensive that it borders on offensive. Like, they are coming at you the moment that they don't like what you said. And now I think everybody's prepared to talk like that. Everybody is immediately drawing their swords as soon as the conversation starts.
It's the Call of Duty-fication of basketball. That's an unappealing outcome on its own, and we haven't even touched on how it affects our perception of the athletes. In the past, the media may have mythologized stars too much, made them seem entirely untouchable because they knew how to constantly put a ball in a basket. Now the pendulum has swung completely in the opposite direction. The best players are berated by anonymous accounts and faceless profiles after a bad game. Their critics take victory laps under posts that detail ugly stat lines, more than willing to utilize bad faith exaggerations to influence the people searching the comment sections for opinions to adopt. The highlight culture that some accounts facilitate dissenters the struggle of competition. It's no longer okay for the best of the best to have an off night or to lose to another great team. That's not the version of the game the audience understands. Based on what they've seen, the flood of brilliant moments without any depth or context. The great ones don't struggle. Athletes become caricatures, abstract representatives that can either be built up or torn down depending on the specific specific circumstance and agenda. Constant production, reliable efficiency, even steady growth no longer cements reputations. Connecting with the algorithm does. Players with resumes still in development grow into cult favorites, while understated pillars of production fade into the background. And then the system does what it does best, capitalizes on emotions.
I think anger is the easiest emotion to get out of somebody, especially somebody that you don't know. We could make posts pretty easily that would get some enraged comments. And I think that because it's the safest investment, it's the one that the outlets that have to hedge their bets are going to turn to each and every time.
They make posts comparing two players in vastly different points of their career with the goal of filling up the comment section, inflating the expectations for a young player still figuring out who they are, undercutting the accomplishments of a proven winner who's done it for years, and encouraging toxic internet arguments as they fiend for relevance, denying culpability as they cash checks off of anger they've created. It's not that they're evil or intentionally destructive, they've just adapted, reframed their approach for an environment that has commodified attention. Why make a poignant deep dive that takes time and effort when a quick debate starter with a couple of highlights is more rewarding? These companies know they're not good, and they know that they're just like filler pieces, but they're driving engagement. Do you think that's kind of like a miss of our culture right now, where people don't really realize the beast they're feeding? At the end of the day, it's all an ecosystem of business interests, and nothing influences a business more than return on investment. As long as the algorithm continues to reward low-effort content meant to promote debates at all costs, we'll continue seeing the same highlights and posts from outlets whose main directive remains profit over everything. Because here's the reality of these algorithms: the cloak behind the window, the ever-elusive system that drives the apps on your phone. They only move with you. They follow what people give their attention to, their time, and hopefully their money. So avoid the low effort posts, the dismissive statements, the AI slop invading our sport, and invest your time into content that means something, made by a generation of creators looking to change the landscape. It's not just a weird time on social media, it's a weird time in the world. Protect yourself, protect your brain. Use basketball for what it's supposed to be: a break from the chaos, a mix-up in the monotony, entertainment at the highest level, peak athletes at their best, storylines that can't be manufactured. We can't influence the inner workings of social media apps. They'll continue to be pushed and pulled in different directions without any warning. But like I said, we can control the way we traverse them. We can be deliberate about what we give our attention to. We can be precise in the way we tell stories. We can be careful about which conversations we join and which ones we leave alone. Our landscape will keep evolving. With every new platform and update, another app will come. Another style of content will rise. I know that sounds daunting, but it doesn't have to be. With every like, post, and comment, we choose what will uplift and what will be discarded. So it's on us to feed and create content that is informative and contextual, to promote communities that cultivate inclusivity and depth. At the end of the day, you just have to create for yourself. Create the content that you want to see on social media. And I guarantee you, there's other people that also want to see that content. There's no altruistic shift coming, no naturally occurring wave of change on the horizon. The reality facing us is simple. Our game, our community, and our culture is at stake, and there's no one coming to save it. Change won't happen on its own. Either we take the wheel or we watch this car crash. It's on you to decide. Beautiful. I feel like we got it. We got it. One take. Basically,
150-minute take.
There we go. Just a conversation between two guys, just two dudes talking about hoops. Throw it on YouTube.